Thank you so much for joining. In this video, we're going to see how to deploy API code using Visual Studio on Azure premises, and we are using app service. So we can develop the code, the API code using Visual Studio. The same code we can deploy in Azure premises with easy steps by using Visual Studio. So let's see how to create API using Visual Studio. Click on project. Select the template ASP.NET Core Web API. I'm going to create a ASP.NET Core API. Click on next. Give a name. I gave sample API, and this is the location. Click on next. So select whatever framework you want to use. I'm going to use .NET 8, which is long-term support. Click on create. So this is the API. For detailed steps how to create API and other features, please watch my channel. There are multiple videos, especially I created for .NET Core API. So now run this API and see the output so that when we deploy, we are going to expect the same. So even I created a series of videos on how to test APIs using Postman. So this is the API. Try it out, execute, and this will be the output. So when I deploy my API into Azure, I should see a similar kind of response. So let's follow the steps. This is my Azure premises where I'm going to deploy my changes. So here, first you can create the service plan and then app service and other required components. The same we can do it from the Visual Studio. So here, my resource group, I'm going to deploy my changes into this resource group. So I don't have any resources. I'm going to create every resource, whatever we require by the API. I'm going to create it by using Visual Studio. So let's open the Visual Studio and follow the steps. So first of all, in Visual Studio, how can you deploy the changes? So the version I'm using, it's Visual Studio 2022. So whatever the 2017, 19, all those versions will be same. So you will have similar if you are using 2017 or 19, but here and there. So how can you deploy your API? Right click on your project and there is a publish option. Just click on the publish option. So it's going to ask the target whether you want to deploy into a folder or FTP server or a web service. This is IaaS. So earlier we used to deploy on-premises using IaaS or import a file or a Docker container and Azure. So I'm going to select Azure. So once you selected Azure, again, it's going to ask whether you want to deploy in a container apps using Linux, a app service, Windows, app service, Linux, Azure, app service container registry in a virtual machine. So I'm going to select app service Windows. So these two are similar, either app service, it's on Windows, app service on Linux. So I'm going to select Windows. So once you selected that app service, then it will ask for credentials, but I already logged in. So it will display all the available subscriptions. And now we need to select the app service. I don't have any app service. So here we have an option called create a new instance. And click on create new instance. So once you create new instance, it's going to give the name. I'm going to say sample app service plan, app service 1. This is the subscription, and you can select the group, or you can create a new group as well. And here the hosting plan. So the hosting plan uh, is giving the name like default name. So you can create a new hosting plan as well. So this is app service and this is the plan. So use unique default host name. Either you can select or deselect and click on create. So now it's going to create a app service plan and app service component in um, your Azure resource group. So once it created, let's go and verify whether the app service and app service plan got created or not. So the app service and app service plan got created. So this is app service and this is the app service plan. So both of them I created from using the Visual Studio, and then and you can see the same. So either you can deploy as a zip package or you can deploy in the app service like this. You can select this so that the deployment can happen as a zip package. And the next section, so API management. This step is not mandatory to deploy your code. So if you want to go ahead, you can create a APIM. So you can create a new instance of the APIM and you can give the name. You can select the resource group and also here API management service. So you can select, but this is not mandatory to um, deploy your code into app service. So I'm skipping this step. So I skip this step and I'm clicking on finish. So now your deployment will be progress. So you can see it's going to publish, ready to publish. So the deployable package got created by Visual Studio on this app service, on this Azure account subscription. This is the sample app service is the one where we are going to deploy the code, and this will be the URL. This will be the URL to access your API. Just click on publish. The publishing is in progress and it's going to be finished in a moment. So once it get deployed, Visual Studio is going to open the site automatically on this URL. I'll also show the results. Publishing to app service windows. You can see the steps and detailed steps in the output window. Take a few seconds. So now it's installing the required extensions. So it's installing ASP.NET Core extensions and spawning up your site. So these are the different several steps in your API deployment. So you can see more detailed steps in the output window. So it's installing the required packages, then it's restarting the web app, and finally the publish succeeded on this date at this time. And yeah, so Visual Studio already opened the site. So the site URL is same. So if you want to see the output, so weather cast. So just append this. So this is the same output we are expecting from the API. So our deployment was successful. So this is the app service plan, and this is the app service. So you can just control this. You can stop, yes, and once you stop it, go to the site and see 403. This web app is stopped, and once you start, um, once you start, yeah, you can just refresh. It's taking a moment. It's now hitting the API. It's still stop. Just refresh. It might take a moment. Yes. So here you can just start, stop. You can delete, and you can download the published profile. So this everything is same. Like whether you are deploying it from Visual Studio or you are deploying in any other mechanism to deploy, this app service will be same. So you can manage it from here. Yeah, our API deployment using Visual Studio was successful, and it's using the app service. So let's look at some advantages and disadvantages of this approach. So the Visual Studio Publish, um, using Visual Studio to deploy your code directly into Azure is having some advantages and disadvantages. So the advantages are like the steps are very simple and easy, straightforward, and the steps themselves guide you when you are deploying your code. So if you are new to Azure, if you want, especially if you are new to Azure and deployment, I would suggest to use Visual Studio initially, though it's not my like favorite deployment tool or approach. But when you are deploying the code using Azure, you will learn how the things will work, and it will show like what are the required things in order to deploy your code, and it will help you creating the app service plan, etc. So if you are new to Azure deployment, and if you are using Visual Studio, I suggest you to deploy by using Visual Studio. Then integrated debugging. Suppose I just deployed a simple API, but if you see any other issues, so it's the debugging can happen with the Visual Studio. So that's one of the other option. Simplified resource provisioning, as I mentioned, the steps themselves they guide you how to use what kind of resources, etc. And Azure Resource Access. Your Visual Studio, since it is Microsoft suggested and favorite tool, so even my favorite tool. So by using Visual Studio, you can access all the Azure resources. So then what are the disadvantages? No automation, everything is manual. So whatever you're doing, you're doing it manually. So there is no automation, especially uh, uh, my favorite deployment tool is Azure CI/CD. So the way I described in these steps, they are completely contrary to your automation. So there is no automation, everything is manual, and it's not good for the enterprise applications. So it's good for the applications like the simple applications where one or two developers are working, and one or two developers are testing. So those kind of applications, the Studio Publish will suitable. But when you are working on enterprise applications, so where tens and hundreds of members, developers, they are continuously writing the code and deploying. So this Visual Studio publishing is not at all suggestible. So for enterprise applications and huge applications, this is completely not suggestible. But for a simple applications where one or two developers working, the Visual Studio code, it's some extent suggestible. So it's not secured. So you are trying to access your Azure resources from your Visual Studio, and in the it's not secured, especially when you are trying to deploy some um, code which is accessing your resources. So this is not at all secured, and also not good for the production deployment. So in whether it's a simple or small application, huge application, deploying something to production manually is not suggestible. So this approach will not be uh, suited for the production deployment. And sometimes Visual Studio issues. So sometimes the Visual Studio have tough time to cache, so it will not properly reflect the changes. So if you're continuously working on Visual Studio, the cache, it might really not reflect what the actual issue is. So yeah, these are the advantages and disadvantages. So you can decide whether you can go for Visual Studio Publishing or not. But as a developer, you want to learn how to deploy changes into Azure, first try this so that you can understand, you'll get some idea like what is happening on your deployment. And that exploration of Visual Studio Publishing will help you when you are really trying to deploy code by using Azure CI/CD pipelines. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Please share your feedback and also suggest your topics so that I can make those topics publish. Sit tight and watch for my next videos. Your feedback is very important, so please provide the feedback. And thank you again for watching my video. Happy coding.